1959. A party of 9 experienced hikers from the Ural Polytechnical Institute who are going for their Grade 3 Hiker's Certificate die under mysterious circumstances in the mountains. To this day, the mystery remains unsolved. Was it an avalanche? Soviet military test? Bigfoot? Was it aliens? It's the Alien Conspiracy Podcast. We are your hosts, Agent ETA,
Agent Locked,
Frank Murr,
and Agent Anderson.
I said locked.
Yeah.
Confidence, bro. You're the man, all right? You can do it.
All right, we're going to try again?
All right.
Yeah.
Can you start at it's the Alien...
Yeah.
All right.
It's the Alien Conspiracy Podcast. We are your hosts, Agent ETA,
Agent Locke,
and Agent Anderson. Come along for this week's episode, the Dyatlov Pass Incident. But first, it's time for Strange Events, Bizarre Facts, the Unbelievable Revealed. This is the Mind Boggle of the Week. Unusual bodily functions? Did you know that you have a race car in your mouth? It's true. Well, sort of. When you sneeze, you expel air and other less savory things at 100 miles per hour, spewing forth 100,000 icky particles of plague-infested nastiness. This cone of pie-hole destruction travels 25 feet, showing no mercy for anyone in its path. There is no escape. What would it be like to surf this wave in a vehicle shrunken by science, or to expel other bodily fluids at such speeds? I hope I never find out. And now it's time for the show. First, we have some business to attend to. That's right, you guessed it, we have a new co-host, Agent Locke. And yes, you guessed it, he is also a huge fan of the television show Lost. Welcome, Agent Locke. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello. I didn't know I was going to introduce myself. Okay, hello. I don't know. God damn it. I just thought okay.
Hey, just so you know, dude, I'm definitely not going to edit that out, all right? Just so you know.
It's recorded now.
Second order of business. Until now, we've been doing a non-explicit show, but what ends up happening is we record an explicit show and then edit out all the explicit parts, which are also just so happen to be the good bits. So we're going to try something new. We're going to try doing an explicit version of our show. And I have to put this warning in advance for anybody who's listened to us before, because it gets a little overboard sometimes. You know, it's not just a couple of curse words here and there. We really kind of take it too far quite often. So if you're faint of heart, or maybe you got some kids around or whatever, just, maybe just listen on headphones, or just don't listen at all, because we kind of, we do take it too far, and probably nobody should listen to us at all. And we will get offensive at some point, I promise. And that's pretty much the business we had to get through, I guess. Any other business you guys can think of?
No. Let's
get to the Dyatlov Pass incident. All right, so we're going to start off with the 10 hikers that started off on the expedition, and their names were Igor
Ali Oxenfree. Igor Ali Oxenfree Dyatlov.
Yeah, I apologize, and I'm being sincere here, because these are real people who did really die under mysterious circumstances. I'm not trying to be offensive. I'm just really bad at pronouncing these names, so I apologize in advance for butchering this stuff. But we have Igor Dyatlov, age 23, Yuri Doroshenko. Yeah, I just skipped. I just skipped the middle name there. I gave up.
Mm-hmm. I've seen it.
Okay. Yuri Doroshenko, age 21. Luida Milia Dubriana.
Lauda.
Lauda?
Yeah, Lauda
I don't think
Dubinia.
I don't think it says Lauda.
Yeah, it's Lauda.
Well,
No,
it's-
it's Lauda Dubinina.
But there's an M in
It's
there.
Lauda Mia, but Lauda was short.
Yeah, I'm trying to make it easy for you.
All right. Well, hey, it says Lauda Milla or Laud Milla? Anyways, she was age 20.
Dubinina.
Georgie Krivoshenko, age 20. Yeah, age 23. What Agent Locke said. Hey, Agent Locke,
Hello. Yes.
would you like to read the rest of the names since I apparently
I'm
can't
sorry.
do it? Starting at Alexander.
So we have Alexander Kalivatov. We have Zenyatta Komogor.
Wait, what? Hold on. How old was
Oh,
Alexander?
I don't have the ages here. I apologize.
They're right there in the
I
notes.
I minimized that.
Do you see that number right next to his
All right,
name?
let me go back here.
He wasn't going off the notes. He was going off that dome piece.
Agent Locke, there's a reason why I uploaded the notes for everybody to see.
All right, you want to start again?
We're trying to
I don't-
follow a format. Locke.
No, dude, this is a whole new format. There's no starting again. There's no edits. We're just going to go.
Yeah.
All right, so 24 for Alexander.
Oh yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Zina Kolmogorova.
Zanadia.
See, it's not so easy, is it?
Well, yeah, when you're on the spot and you're not. I apologize now for cutting in
Kolmogorova.
with you.
Was it Kolmogorova?
Kolmogorova, yeah, 22. Rustem Slobodem. Oh yeah,
Slobnobin?
23. Nikolai Tebio Abrino, 23. Zimyan
Zolotorov.
How did you get
Zolotoryov.
Nikolai's name correct with that hyphen in there, and you missed this next one, which seems a little easier to me.
Oh, I don't know if any of us are getting any of this correct, to be honest.
Yeah, you have a point there.
And then we got Yuri Yudin, which is actually the only person that survived this incident because of health issues caused him to leave early before they actually did their main
Spoilers.
hike.
Mm-hmm.
Spoilers, Agent Locke.
Yeah, man.
Okay. Hey, the main point here is we have, 9 talented hikers, and they're all quite young.
Yeah.
And the only person that was, much older was the Zimyan.
If you count them all, I believe the number is actually 10.
Including Yuri, yeah.
Well, yeah, but Yuri took off.
And Yuri is he's 21 years old. Yeah, but we didn't get to that part yet. We're working up to that.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Got to work up to Yuri there. Okay, so let's start off with just the basic narrative of where we're starting from. Obviously, you guys know that something weird happened or we wouldn't be talking about it. But let's start at the beginning. The leader of this group was Igor Dyatlov. And that's why we call it the Dyatlov Pass, is because after the fact, they named the pass after the leader of the group, Igor Dyatlov. That's why they call it the Dyatlov Pass. Mm-hmm. This group of people, they're all students except for Seaman SZ, the 38-year-old, the only guy who's like the outlier, supposedly met up with him later on.
Yeah,
Everybody else was a student from the university. They're all in their early 20s.
Yeah, and Zolotarov was actually he was supposed to be a ski instructor and also a World War II vet.
So their goal was to get across the northern Urals in the something Oblast Soviet Union. I can't let it go, man. I have to try to meet that challenge. You know what I mean?
Well,
Sverdlovsk. I apologize. I'm really sorry to our Russian friends out there. I'm not doing this on purpose. I promise.
Oh, this might be some good entertainment for them. They're just like what the hell? What spelling are these guys looking at? Are they looking at the same spelling that I know?
Yeah. It's not that hard. Jetninov or whatever, from Office Space. Anyways, so their goal was to get across these mountains, and they were all experienced grade 2 rated hikers, which was out of all the ranking system, grade 3 was the highest.
Mhm.
And they were doing this hike to earn their grade 3. So this was a fairly difficult hike, but these were also very experienced hikers.
Yeah.
They knew their stuff. They would not get lost on a short 5-mile hike like you and I would. They would know how to find their way out of the woods. They're hiking up a mountain here, so they know what they're doing.
Yeah.
Their goal was to reach the Gora Otorten Mountain, which was about 6 miles north of the Dyatlov Pass, which, spoilers, is where they all died. So what happens is on January 25th, they arrived in a small village of Vizhai, that's where they meted. I might edit that out because that sounds pretty stupid, but I probably won't because it's also very funny. So they met. Let me try that again. They met on January 25th in 1959 in a small village of Vizhai to kind of group up and get ready to go towards, the hike. And while they were there, they bought and ate some loaves of bread and possibly some other supplies that may or may not be a factor later. We'll see. So they were there, they stayed overnight, and they left on the 27th of January on their expedition. Now, while they were hiking on the 28th of January, the next day, Yuri Yudin, he turned back and went home because he had some health problems. He had some joint pains and he was sick. This is, so sorry guys, Agent Locke already spoiled that part of the story for you. I know it's kind of a letdown, but hey, it is what it is.
You
Deal
are
with
welcome.
Yes, thank you.
We do appreciate you.
So he was the only survivor of this expedition, unfortunately. But hey, it turns out sometimes, natural selection gets it wrong. The weak guy survived, so good for him. On the 31st of January, they were preparing to climb the mountain or climb through the pass, and they left some supplies in a forest for the return trip. So they left some stuff behind. So on February 1st, they moved through the pass and they were planning to camp on the far side of the pass. But while they were traveling through the pass, they got hit with bad weather, which was like snowstorms. And I don't really know what it was, but you have to guess that it was probably was bad visibility
it was supposed
conditions.
To be pretty much a complete whiteout, wasn't it? As far as how much snow was coming down and the wind speed that they were confronted with.
They didn't have weather satellites back then, so I'm not sure if we know 100% what the bad weather was, but they think that bad weather affected the party because they got lost and they went in the wrong direction. After a while, they realized that they went in the wrong direction and they set up camp on the slope of the mountain. And this is the kind of the first weird part. They set up camp about a mile away from the woods. And if the weather was bad, why wouldn't they have just gone back to the woods, which the trees and bushes and things would have offered them a little bit of protection from the snowstorm? But on the other hand, maybe they had very poor visibility, so they really had no choice. They realized that they were going the wrong way because they were going uphill and they were not supposed to be going uphill yet. And they said, well, we're not in the right spot. Let's just stop here and camp for the night and maybe the weather will be better in the morning. So who knows? But I'm guessing that's kind of what happened. So that night, the night of February 1st, they all died. They're all dead. Now, they were supposed to send a telegram on the 12th of February back home to let everybody know that they had reached their objective and that everything was okay. Quite often with this sort of an expedition, there are delays. Maybe it wouldn't have been till the 15th or whatever. So people started getting worried, but they didn't get super worried until about the 20th of February. At that point, the families started making a lot of noise and convinced the authorities to send out search parties. They sent out search parties, both civilian and military, to find them. And they eventually found the party on the 26th. What they found was kind of weird. The tent where they had camped in was cut open from the inside, and the people inside the tent, the party, they all rushed out of the tent. This is the first mystery because the tent obviously had an opening or a door they could have left out of. Why would they have cut a hole in the tent and escaped that way instead of just going through the opening of the tent. Even if the weather was bad, they would have had to been able to see inside the tent, right? They would have had access to some kind of light source, lanterns or something, I'm guessing. I don't know. But this is where it starts to get weird, and it only gets weirder. They all left wearing almost nothing at all. They had underwear on. Some of them had socks. Some of them were barefoot. One of them had one shoe on, one foot, but not the other. And they ran out into this weather, which was so cold that there was no hope of survival without wearing any clothes. They would not have expected to survive more than a short amount of time out there. So this indicates that they were probably panicked from something. Something really freaked them out, and they felt that they had to get out of the tent right now. They couldn't wait. They couldn't get dressed. They couldn't even spend 30 seconds to put on their shoes. They had to escape immediately. But what could have caused that in this area? That's really the whole crux of this mystery. Now, the footprints led towards the edge of the woods, which again was about 1 mile away. At the edge of the woods, there was a tree that had a small fire underneath of it. And the tree itself had branches that were broken to about 15 feet high, indicating that one of the people there had probably climbed the tree. But if they'd climbed the tree to look, the idea is that they'd climbed the tree to look for the camp or the tent. But if the visibility was zero or the weather was bad, why would they climb the tree to look for their camp? They wouldn't have been able to see it anyways. So that part is another kind of really weird mystery. They found 2 bodies at this campfire and the tree. That was Krivonchenko and Doroshenko. They were both shoeless and in their underwear. Between this fire and the tree and the original tent camp, they found 3 more bodies, which is Kolmogorova, Slobodin, and the leader Dyatlov. Those people appeared that they were trying to head back towards the tent, and they were found separately at 300, 480, and 630 meters from the tree. And the snow was pretty thick at this point, so this suggests that they were trying to return to the tent. They couldn't necessarily see each other all that well, and they all just sort of died in different places trying to get back. About 2 months later, they found the remaining 4 bodies. Those were found on the 4th of May under 13 feet of snow in a ravine about 240 feet further into the woods than where the fire was. 3 out of 4 of these people were somewhat dressed, and they were wearing clothing that belonged to other people. So this suggests that maybe they grabbed clothes in the dark and they don't know whose clothing they were wearing, or maybe they took clothing off of people who had already died to try to stay warm. But in any case, they were found in a ravine dead, covered by snow. Some of the clothes were kind of burned and torn. They all died from different causes. Some of them died from hypothermia, but some of them actually died from injuries, which is yet another mystery. How could these people die from injuries out in the middle of nowhere when they're covered in snow? There was an official investigation, and they concluded that everybody died of compelling natural forces. And I don't know what that means, but that was the conclusion. So that's the very basic story. Now I'm going to hand it off to Agents ETA and Agent Locke to talk about some of the more detailed nuances of the case, because it gets a lot weirder than what I've already said.
Yes, it absolutely does. I don't think there's really any understating that in almost every aspect of this case. Everything about it is freaking weird, dude. Just starting out with the tents. The location that they chose to stake their tents, it wasn't necessarily like the best location that you could think of, but there is a way to describe that. I guess, they couldn't have had very much visibility if there was a lot of weather around them, especially if it's snow. So, okay, maybe they just at some point decided to stake their tents where they were, you know what I mean? So, we'll just do this. And for the very fact that their tents were found still staked, it couldn't have been so bad. Maybe I'm being naive, but it couldn't have been so bad to where they could not have staked their tents, because obviously that's how their tents were found. But leading into where the searchers were searching the tents, not only were the damage to the tent, would describe somebody ripping their way out of the tent in what most people would presume is a frenzied panic, because why else would you do that? Like you described. And also there was a bunch of just belongings. It wasn't just clothes and shoes and stuff, but it was also, supplies that any experienced hiker would want to have with them if they were going into the elements. Like these people were found, they were found in just areas that, there's no cover, there's no protection from the elements, and they didn't have much on them. None of them did, to protect themselves. But yeah, it's very odd, the whole campsite. And then they were able to find, those footprints which led them to the first victims, which is extremely weird. That first site is very, very odd by the campfire, because the tree right next to him, like you had described, was all torn up. All the limbs were broken off of it and stuff. The bark was disheveled. And also, which one was it? Was it Krivonashenko, or was it Doroshenko that was found with the abrasions and like the scratch marks and stuff on his chest? Do you know, Agent Locke?
Well, yeah, it was Doroshenko that had kind of. Are you referring to the particles of moss and pine needles that were found on the right side of the head?
Yeah. So people think that he might have been the one that climbed up the tree.
Yeah, and I think it was because he was either. I don't. Some say that he was trying to, get visibility, but I think in those winds on that particular night, that would be very difficult. So the other theory is that he was trying to get little barks and stuff, cut them off to use for a little fire.
Yeah.
There's actually a third theory that I'm borrowing from one of my favorite podcasts, Alien Theorists Theorizing. Oh, yeah. We're getting a little ahead of ourselves here, but a third theory is that he was being abducted by aliens and they were kind of sucking him into the ship with like a tractor beam or something. Mm-hmm. And he was clinging onto the tree to try to avoid being sucked up into the ship. And that's why it looks like he was climbing the tree, but he was actually just grabbing onto it while he was being abducted.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that would be crazy, and that might explain some of the injuries he had, because he either was frantically holding on to the tree or frantically climbing up the tree somehow. But his injuries do make sense, I think, with some kind of interaction with the tree. One of those two, you know what I mean?
Yeah, because he had a lot of abrasions and scratches on his face and his hands, like his fingertips. So that shows that in that instance, it adds credibility to him trying to climb. But then there are injuries on his, his lower legs as well. Oh yeah, and his arms, which looks like he may have fell. Yeah, throwing the UFO theory aside,
wasn't he burned also?
Yeah, it did look like he had some burn marks on it.
I think it was his lower legs and feet, and like some of the because he neither one of them had very much clothing on, but the little bit of clothing they did have were like small clothing, like undergarments, the stuff that we use nowadays, as boxers or underwear of any way, shape, and sort, but their undergarments that they were using were like long johns of sorts. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It could be possible that whenever they tried to get whatever campfire set up, that they were doing that, that night. Maybe, as they succumbed to the elements, maybe they were so close that they caught, maybe they...
Or he was climbing up the tree in fear of something, and somehow that something was trying to burn him from beneath. I've heard that theory. Like, as far as like how he got those injuries and how that he got the burn marks to his small clothes,
I just want to throw out there that I'm actually going commando style right now.
Oh yeah, dude. Well, you gotta live free, baby.
That's true. Well, while we're on the topic, you know.
So those first two bodies by the campfire were the first found, and then the next three that were found were in between the two sites. And I think one thing that I found really interesting that I heard mentioned that supposedly was found in the autopsy was Dyatlov had bruising marks around his ankles, and they would be consistent with somebody who had their ankles tied, although there wasn't any like binding material or any ropes or anything that was found around his ankles, they did find those bruises, and the bruises were on the front and the backs of both of his ankles.
Yeah, and they actually saw that there was hemorrhaging inside the underlying tissue as well for his ankles. So yeah, it could look like they were bound and the blood supply was being cut off or something, or blood vessels were, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They were kind of ruptured inside there.
Yeah, and so the first guys that everybody was found, the first group of people that were found were all basically, they said that all of them died. They succumbed to hypothermia. That was the ruling basically through the autopsy, right?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, but most of them were classified as hypothermia.
But every single one of them still has something odd about the way that they were found. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. That's correct. Yeah.
So I mean, and not, I mean, if only just the area that they were found in, you know, and perimeter to the campsite, and also this first site, the campfire, you know, it's just none of them should be in the situation that they're in, that they were found in, you know.
Mm-hmm. And for Dyatlov, it didn't look like he had any internal injuries taking place like some of the later victims that we'll be discussing here. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. So yeah, I mean, this sounds like a good enough segue as any, I suppose, however clunky it may be. You want to move on to the next group of victims that were found?
Yeah. I mean, the initial. Okay. So let's see here.
I'm gonna take this little edit break right here to take a shot, because it's good time as any. You know what I mean? Get my, loosen up my cockles and subcockles. Get all saucy, baby. You know.
What are you drinking over there?
Who, me?
Yes, you.
Oh, a little bit of the old Cellar Jerry and Canada Dry Bold ginger ale.
Oh, nice. Yeah, Sailor Jerry's good stuff. I'm having some Bear Republic Racer 5.
Oh yeah,
it's a local brewery over here. I'm not going to brag, but I live pretty close to this place. It's about a 20-minute drive, not too bad, and it's delicious.
Oh, it's a solid brew, as solid as anything's going to get. Well, it's up there. It's it's no Pliny the Elder, but Pliny the Elder is a different beer, altogether, pretty much so.
I'd say it's probably influenced by Pliny a little bit, and if you can't get your hands on Pliny, and all you have available is Racer 5, it's not a bad choice.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so the other victims in this incident, of course, now initially
Dude, I inhaled.
Right, I might edit that.
I inhaled some fluid. Sorry, bro. So, usually, sometimes, like when I take shots, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'll do the little 1, 2, 3. You know.
Mm-hmm.
Little bit of soda pop, little bit of shot, little bit of soda pop. And that was weird. So, I put the little bit of soda pop, and then I inhaled a little bit by accident, and I inhaled some of the bubblies coming up off of it, some of that carbonation spitting and bubbling in the back of my throat, baby, Sinners, I don't know what you're thinking about, but don't take what I say out of context. But yeah, no, I inhaled that shit, so I had a little bit of, a little bit of soda pop down the wrong pipe, that gag reflex, kicked in.
you reached your threshold.
You gotta work on that gag reflex, dude.
It ain't much of a threshold. I
You
ain't
can
worked on
overcome
it
that
much.
if you want.
Yeah, but I don't want.
You gotta practice, dude. That's all I'm
For
saying.
what?
Just,
I don't plan on taking
sometimes-
too many trips to Bangkok and exploring too many of them soy streets. You know what I mean?
Sometimes it comes in useful to not have a gag reflex. That's all I'm saying. All right. you got something for us, Agent Locke?
Yeah.
There we go.
So those were the first. Okay.
Hey, dude.
Hey, Agent Locke. Agent Locke.
Yes.
Hey.
If our Agent ETA burps or something, I can just mute that track. Don't sweat about it, dude. Just keep talking. It's all good. If it sounds, if it's overlapping stuff and it gets in the way, I'll just mute that stuff. So don't worry about it, dude.
Hey, man.
Okay.
You're going to hear all kinds of mouth noise,
Mm-hmm.
I'm just saying. Now you know that. And knowing's half the battle. Okay?
That's true.
I appreciate you.
Thank you.
So we got through the first 3. Of course, there are 2 others that were found, and these were like the initial bodies, found during the investigations, and then the other 4 didn't come to a bit later. And the next one is the Zina Komogorova. She was found about 630 meters from the cedar tree. Her body was face down, and of course she had the typical abrasions all across the face, the fingers, and then across the on the side, like on her lumbar region, which was, I believe was, the right side of the torso, she had a very large red bruise, that was on there. So they kind of, looked like some type of blunt force that hit her there. So that's a, very odd kind of injury to have, given that they were just moving away from a tent. But, and then,
and both of them, Zolotaryov and Dubinina, both had major chest fractures, but the odd thing about their injuries were there weren't any abrasions on the outside where they had the internal injuries. So, and that's one of the big things that people talk about. One of the big points where they talk about maybe some type of energy field that they got hit with, or some type of concussion that they got hit with. It caused those injuries because it's kind of a hard series of injuries to explain, because, if there's no abrasions on the outside, it doesn't look like they got hit by a blunt object. How did they get all that internal damage, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of conspiracies that swirl around those injuries.
Yeah, same for Rustem Slobodin. He actually had he had a lot of head injuries occurring as well, a lot of hemorrhaging, and of course the similar abrasions on the the hands, and then scratches across, various scratches across the face, and then
And then Nikolai Brignonia, however you pronounce it, man, Nikolai Brignonis, right? He also had a fractured skull, or did you already mention him?
No, I was, because those are the four remaining that we get to. I was I was doing the first five and then moving into the remaining four that they find later. Because
Dude, I thought we already moved into the remaining four, dude. I was already there. Okay, I am there right now.
No, that's fine. I was just I wanted to separate them because they're where the injuries are, a lot more, that there's a lot more stronger, internal injuries that took place. So that's where it gets really...
there's all sorts of craziness and tomfoolery shenanigans when we're talking about these damn injuries. I mean, Dubinina was missing her damn eyes, both of her eyes, right?
Yeah, Lyuda Dubinina, she actually had both her eyes were missing, her tongue was missing, and then her ribs on both her left and right side were fractured. So something gave a lot of blunt force to her.
It also looked like she had bitten off part of her lips as well.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, either she had bitten off part of her own lips, or somebody else had. But yeah, no, it appears that those injuries were consistent. And there's also pictures that kind of support it. But through decomposition and the period of time that these bodies were sitting out there, obviously some things are going to be hard to interpret. Some of these injuries, But I mean, they were found in plenty of an odd way. This is some weird shit, dude.
Yeah, she also had massive hemorrhaging in her heart's right atrium as well, which was,
That atrium.
So yeah, there was just a significant force that hit hit her chest. And these remaining four were actually found a good distance away from, the cedar tree. They were actually found in like a ravine, which, let's see.
And some people think that like some of these injuries may have been caused by them falling down that ravine. And I don't know. I've heard two different sides of that story. I've heard some people say that the ravine wasn't steep enough or deep enough for those injuries to be caused. And then I've also heard other people state the quite opposite, that no, it could have happened with some of these inclines. And mind you, both of those people that I heard were interviews of individuals that had actually been to the site. Mind you, obviously none of us have been to the site. So, I mean, most of what we're talking about is all speculation, So it's a very different story than, if you've been to the site, which is why some of these testimonies are so important for me. And why some of it is so confusing for me also, because you hear very opposite things from people that have been to the site themselves, and they come up with very different stories or opinions.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, granted, assuming that, they were traveling in complete darkness, because I believe at this particular, what was theorized as the time when they left the tent, I don't think there was any light being created by the moon. And it was also, I think, in the investigation, they saw that, many of their, they didn't have most of their belongings. So it looked like, they were just traveling in the complete darkness. So, I mean, if it's a reasonable drop, like if it's a pretty steep, I mean, it wouldn't even need to be really steep in that ravine. If they're in the dark and then they're not quite sure where they're going, I mean, a sudden, stumble into something like that could prove pretty damaging to the body.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's pretty much the extent, I mean, of the knowledge that I have with their injuries. Is there anything more you want to talk about with the injuries, Agent Locke?
Well, yeah, there's also with Zemion, he also had the same thing on his right side of his rib cage. He had multiple fractures that occurred, which, based on the forensic expert that reviewed these, that did the autopsies, they said that, it would require a strong amount of blunt force in order to create the fractures that they sustained. So. Yeah.
But there wasn't any evidence of a blunt force object having hit them as far as the, their epidermis on the outside, right?
No, because, from what they, given the path that they followed from their tent to where they've, met their demise, there was it was a lot of walking, and then it was you know what I mean? And then dealing with the cold elements. So,
yeah, it's very odd, I mean, like for example, obviously, the common explanation by the government was it was an avalanche, right? Wasn't that the first explanation?
That is the main theory that keeps circulating about the Dyatlov Pass, but it's very difficult to go along with that theory, in my opinion, because based on people who've went there and studied that slope, it wasn't steep enough or had an angle that would be, sufficient for an avalanche to kind of, accumulate well enough to, and then also being that their tent was still there. I mean, if there was an avalanche to create that kind of impact on them and such damage, I mean, why is their tent still in the same spot at all?
The tents wouldn't be there. Those feet prints that they followed to the bodies themselves,
that'd be all covered. There.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how. I mean, it's hard for me to kind of visualize exactly how far apart these things were. Even like, I don't know, hearing the explanations, of the distances and stuff. I don't have that good of a spatial, imagination, I guess. But, avalanches can, cover wide areas, and the fire may have not been there as well. You know what I mean? And also, I don't know. It's just that you wouldn't have found as much evidence. They wouldn't have been able to follow any evidence really if it was avalanche. Everything would be covered. Hell, they might not have even ever found them if it was an avalanche.
Mm-hmm. And it also doesn't add to another element that's part of the story, and that is that they ran testing against the clothing from these hikers, and they found substantial contamination, like radiation contamination on the clothing. Now, from what I was reading, at that time, the Soviet Union had had sanitary standards for beta particle contamination that was under 5,000 decays per minute per 23 square inches. And many of the clothing pieces that they had tested were right a little bit above that normal, contamination level. And then that was this is many weeks, so they were out in the elements for however long. So it could have been even higher prior to that,
Man, look at you over there trying to sound smart and shit.
I
don't understand most of what you said, but I do know I heard stories of like discoloration and stuff, the garments that they were wearing.
Yeah.
Like discoloration in a way that would be consistent with high doses of radiation, I guess. I don't know how that works, to be quite honest.
Well, yeah, there was one brown, and that's the thing, of these clothes, there was a brown sweater found that actually had around 10,000 decays per minute. So basically, according to that radiologist, all these clothes that they had tested exceeded the standards for people working with radioactive substances, but they weren't doing anything like that. They were hiking.
Like 10,000 George decays? Is that what we're talking about?
Absolutely. Yeah, I'll go with that.
My God. Yeah, that'd be pretty sweet.
They really should come up with a unit of measurement. Why not?
Dude, that would be the most entertaining unit of measurement right there. Oh, how many decays there? Oh, 10,000 George decays.
Yeah, I mean, you got Maxwell's and Joules and, all sorts of weird things named after people that are They're scientists. They're not bad people,
Yeah,
but they're not entertaining people.
I don't need it to be directly related to the subject that it's named after. I mean,
Yeah.
it could be way more simple to be entertaining to me.
Yeah, and to add on the that radiation talking point, one of the things I found from a author who wrote like Dead Mountain, which is about this incident, he had spoken directly to Tatiana Dyatlov, which is Igor's younger sister.
Damn,
and she
sounds hot,
explained,
dude.
she said,
I was just thinking, I kind of like that name, Tatiana. That's a nice name.
"You men are
That's
filthy."
the first thing I thought. I'm just saying. Well, yeah.
It's a nice name. I had no filthy thoughts. I just had the thought, that's
I
a
did.
very nice name. That's all I thought.
I had all the filthy thoughts. As soon as he said Tatiana, I was like, oh, God damn, that sounds like a beautiful stripper.
So let me get this straight. By uttering the word Tatiana, it sparked all this knowledge you have of various...
Hey, I have a wild imagination, my friend. Yes, sir, Tatiana. Hey, that's a beautiful name.
Well, if I complete the sentence about what she talked about regarding her brother's funeral, that might shrink
Look at
your
Agent
erection.
Locke for the second time in a row here, bringing us back on topic. I appreciate you, sir.
Hold on, though. Could you do it in a falsetto voice for me, please?
Yes.
Wait,
Just
for science,
Locke?
for research
Yeah,
purposes.
we're doing science, dude.
wait, I do not compute.
What?
High-pitched voice.
Okay.
Yeah, talk like you're a girl. Thank
Yeah,
you.
dude. All righty then.
So you see here,
Come on, Agent Locke.
this is quite embarrassing, and I can't create that character for you. I apologize.
I just
All right,
embarrassed myself.
I'll use my vast imagination then. Go for it, dude.
Yes,
All right.
dude.
All right. So add to this point. Wait, I'm trying to recall where it was.
Wait, what?
Okay, so basically, someone who had interviewed Tatiana Dyatlov, she made a point to describe that Igor at his funeral, he did not look the same as she remembered him prior to that hiking, trip. She had said that his hair was completely white and his skin was quite aged. And for someone who's 23 years old, that just seems quite bizarre. Like, yes, I mean, being out in the elements, the decaying corpse, with whatever the sun, the humidity,
Rigor mortis and all the things that happen to a dead body after it dies.
Yeah,
I could. After it happens to a body after it's dead. There we go.
So, I mean, I could see possibilities in the aging, but then she also said that the face was very brownish and discolored. So I mean,
I think they could still explain the skin though.
Fair enough.
The color and or the sagging or advanced age of the skin, because who knows what's going to happen to a skin, how a body's going to react to whatever the hell it is that they went through, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the hair is very odd because I mean, there's no process that I've ever heard of. I'm no expert in any way, shape, or form when it comes to this type of shit. But I mean, I've never heard of anybody's hair turning white. You know what I mean? When they died, I just don't know how that happens.
Yeah, I don't see how hypothermia would cause that either, because it looked like Igor definitely passed from hypothermia because he didn't have the same type of injuries as the others, but
the dude's hair definitely wasn't still freaking frozen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It sounds when I read that bit of it, it sounds to me like turning your hair white would have to be like a direct physical contact with some kind of chemical agent that wouldn't be caused by like sound waves or being afraid or something. That would have to.
Do you think that could be radiation? Maybe.
I don't know. You'd have to ask a scientist, but it would require direct interaction, I would think. I don't know.
Yeah. That would make sense to me. So you guys want to dig into some of their conspiracy theories and different stuff that people have theorized about this hair case?
Let's do it. I'll start us off with our first theory, which is that this whole thing was caused by the Yeti, a.k.a. the Abominable Snowman, a.k.a. the Russian Bigfoot, a.k.a. El Nasty. The theory goes that the crushing damage inflicted upon some of the victims could have been caused by a large ape-like creature. Also, when monkeys or apes attack a person, they will sometimes tear things off, like lips, tongues, arms, whatever.
Genitals.
So that could,
Hey,
yeah.
Let's be honest. That's the first thing they go for.
No, it is, yeah.
Yeah.
But we're theorizing here. It is they don't necessarily. Maybe they don't go straight for the genitals. Maybe they go straight for the lips. Who knows? So the theory is that this damage could potentially be caused by the abominable snowman or the Yeti. But when you really look at the data or the evidence, there's kind of zero to back it up. It would make more sense to say that the Russian coyote, whatever the heck that is, came along and ate the eyeballs. That would be more plausible than, a Yeti. So it's a really fun theory, but it doesn't really pan out because there's zero evidence to support it. There's no footprints. There's no, big giant footprints. There's no hair samples. There's no arms torn off. It looks just kind of like maybe if it was animals, it was smaller animals that could have done this damage. But I still like the theory. I like the idea that it could have been a Yeti that had done all this. Maybe it was kind of sneaking around their camp when they were in their tent and they're starting to get freaked out. Then they heard a roar outside, roar, Yeti roar. And then they cut their way out the back because they were super scared or something. It might make a good movie. I don't know.
Wait a minute. I watched that show that with the turtle man when he was hunting Sasquatch. I'm pretty sure his call went something to the effect of "woo loo loo" or something like that, right? I thought that's how the Sasquatch sounded.
Oh no,
it's not. It's not a roar. It's a woo loo loo.
We're talking about the Russian Sasquatch, and we know.
Oh no!
Yeah.
You know what I'm thinking of is South Park.
That was
okay.
Lulu.
Okay.
Yeah, Lulu. That's what I'm thinking of. Oh, every bit of that's no. I'd rather keep that memory. That's how I prefer to think of Sasquatch.
Dear
Butters,
to your heart.
Yeah.
All right, so that's pretty much that particular theory. Who wants to talk about a different theory on this one?
Well, shit. I mean, yeah. I think we should. I think Agent Locke has I think Agent Locke should shut the fuck up and talk about his theory. You know what I mean?
Well, no.
What, dude? Spit it out, bro.
Well,
I'm saying that your theory is my theory is a bit ridiculous. So,
well, no, that's fine. Well, I'll go ahead real quick, and then I'll hand the baton to you. So one of the theories, one of the theories is that the Mansi people, which is a local indigenous tribe of that region, actually attacked the hikers when they were up on that slope. But there's no indication. Like when they did their investigation, there was no other footsteps that they found other than ones connected to these night hikers. And when you look a little bit at the Mansi people, or they look like a very peaceful tribe, and nothing kind of points to that type of violence that would result in blunt force trauma to their several of the hikers' ribcage, their heads. It just doesn't add up. I mean, it would require it would almost be like the Mansi people had a Yeti and they unleashed that on the hikers. That would be just as ridiculous as saying the Mansi people, So I don't buy that.
Well, but that also wouldn't align with their traditions and how they generally act. I mean, they're peaceful people that tend to be in tune with their surroundings. They don't act like that. They don't typically raise any kind of animal to sick it on anything.
Yeah, and then there was even many volunteers during that investigation that assisted with trying to navigate the area because they knew it very well and they wanted to assist with trying to help find the bodies.
Oh yeah, and as soon as they were aware of this situation, they immediately volunteered their help.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, if you were guilty of that, why would you be that willing to put yourself on the front line of the quote unquote investigation, I guess you could say, to what you potentially may have done if you were the ones that were the perpetrators of this event, as far as, that led up to the deaths of all these people. I mean, yeah, like we were talking about before, that nothing about this makes any freaking sense, dude. I mean, it's a weird one. This is a weird one.
No. Yeah, it absolutely is. One of the most interesting elements of this case to me is also like a theory of what caused their death. And there was a group of hikers around on February 1st, which was the night of when this group supposedly succumbed to their to the elements or whatever. But essentially, a group of hikers, they saw strange orbs of light in the sky.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And then again, this occurred later, February 17th, by another group led by this man named Vladislav. His group recounted that they saw basically large light spots that grew larger and larger, and it caused some terror among the group. And they said it seemed like something was about to collide with the Earth, and it caused a lot of panic amongst them. And this was a theory that kind of circulated Yeah, this was it was an element that was circulating this investigation for a good period of time. And for me, what I think happened is, I think whatever these orbs of light were, whether they be paranormal or man-made, they, that night when they went to, prepare for, their rest, I think some type of sound that was emanated from these lights caused a disturbance among the group. And then, of course, for me, it would also kind of connect the whole radiation exposure that they encountered, because perhaps there was it started with a sound, and then it led to some type of sensation that all the hikers were feeling inside the tent, which caused them to sporadically cut their way out, and they didn't feel like they had any time to grab their belongings. They just had to leave. And then as they left, of course, the elements were quite rough that evening, and they didn't have any light. So I think from there, they kind of succumbed to a lot of, mishaps. For me, I think it's possible that if they were in the dark, the four that were found in the ravine, I think there's potential that they fell in a pretty.
It kind of led to a series of unfortunate events.
Yeah,
I guess you'd say.
But there's definitely something strange that occurred initially that sparked them to go away, and I think it's related to those fire orbs that were seen in the sky, not just by There were several accounts of people saying they saw that stuff in the sky, but no one knows what it was exactly. I mean,
well, and some of the natives from the area also gave accounts of seeing those same orbs, didn't they?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, there was quite a few, and for a while, what was his name? The lead investigator, which was a Lev Ivanov. He was kind of sitting on this theory for a while until later he was it appears he was told to stop that type of investigation and focus more on, natural elements.
Some orders came from above.
Yeah. Look, because he had to leave and go speak to his superiors. And then when he came back, those conversations completely stopped.
Yeah. Which is similar to kind of the theory that I believe in, to be honest. I mean, yeah, it's a part of the theory that you want to move towards my conspiracy theory beliefs.
Yeah, absolutely.
Whatever you want to call it.
Let's do it.
All right. So, okay. To be quite blunt about it, what I believe happened is this group of hikers were under the influence of some type of hallucinogenic drug, substance, whatever you want to call it, whether it was like a derivative of dimethyltryptamine or, LSD or even psilocybin or something. Because so like I've said before, to me, nothing about this makes any freaking sense, right? So here's what I believe. I believe that this party, either knowingly or unknowingly, had ingested some sort of hallucinogenic drug, or whether it be maybe even the bread that they had all eaten, under 8 hours before they supposedly had all died, by the way, which is part of my theory, because they all ate at the same time and they all died within 8 hours of their last meal, which I don't know. It kind of stands out for me as an important point of, whatever, an important talking point, but.
Yeah, it definitely adds to their kind of erratic behavior because, again, these were experienced hikers and they decided to abruptly leave their tent in the cold with
Yeah,
nothing
and
on.
well, and most of what I'm talking about here is all kind of supported by their erratic behavior, because I mean, all this, every single one of these bodies were found in a situation that doesn't make sense. Like I said before, all this behavior that they you could presume that they exhibited would be erratic. So I mean, I think that they were under the influence of some sort of hallucinogenic substance. I think that it was, like many things in life, there's not only one cause to a certain situation, right? So I think that it's quite possible that they were under the influence of something like what I said, and something paranormal happened to them, whether it was the appearance of you know, a UFO, aliens. They had something to do with pushing them past the brink. You know what I mean? Causing their absolute hysteria. Maybe that was the reason why that they broke out of the tents. You know what I mean? Like I think that they were presented with something during their trip, I guess you could say, that caused them to go into a state of hysteria, and that led to a cascading effect. You know what I mean? It led to a series of unfortunate events. You know what I mean? A series of very irrational events. You know what I mean? And I think that's why those events, some of the scenes that we find are so irrational, is because I think that they were on some sort of hallucinogenic, trip.
Along
Because
those lines, there's one hallucinogen that is possible to have taken without intending to, which is they call it ergot poisoning. So remember I mentioned earlier they stopped off on that village and bought some bread.
yeah,
Ergot
yeah.
is a mold that can infect various types of food, such as bread or grains, and it produces a chemical that can cause hallucinations. According to what I could find, they ate the bread that they bought in that village, but that doesn't mean that they didn't take extra along with them, and they might have eaten it later on the journey. And if
Mm-hmm.
they had saved bread that didn't have preservatives, it could
Yeah.
have grown more of this mold. So
Which
that's
is what
another,
which is exactly what I was getting at.
yeah. And there's no proof, or even there's not even any evidence of this. It's just kind of interesting to think about, but it is one possibility that could have caused some sort of hallucination.
Pretty much the reason why I come to my conclusion is because I'm trying to just describe the erratic behavior. You know what I mean? And that's the only like way I could kind of describe it. What I don't know. There's one just real quick. There's one other theory that I've heard that is kind of it's anecdotal, but it's also kind of interesting just because of the era, that the time in which this happened, which was at the very beginning of the Cold War, I guess you could say. Because let's not forget, as soon as World War II ended, and maybe even a little bit before, if just barely, the Cold War started. You know what I mean? So one theory I've heard was that every single one of these hikers were actually KGB agents, right? And they actually came into contact with some CIA agents that were, combing the area, trying to collect data on some sort of secret, USSR government installation that was in the area, And yeah, so the CIA operatives got the jump on them, basically, and that's why all of them were found dead, and you didn't find any CIA operatives. I don't think there's any evidence to support that, but like I said, I think it's a fun little anecdotal theory.
Yeah, I love it. And it reminds me of the 80s, man, because that's when I grew up was, like Spies Like Us and all this Cloak and
Oh,
Dagger stuff.
dude, spies like us. Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah, you know what I'm
Doctor,
talking about.
doctor,
Doctor. And
dude.
it's a really good story. Even if there is no evidence, I kind of like it.
What do you think, Agent Locke?
Oh, that's pretty sweet. I wholeheartedly like. It reminds me of a movie plot.
Mm,
CIA, KGB. Who will win? Obviously, the
mm.
CIA.
Well, yeah,
Well,
I
I
mean,
mean, I guess from our perspective.
Yeah. Well, no, just being that that they all perished.
Oh yeah, in this story, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, I'll get into. I have two theories that I think are actually somewhat plausible. The first theory is that the So obviously, as Agent ETA mentioned before, the people were not in their right state of mind. Otherwise, they would not have cut their way out of their tent, rushed out into the icy wilderness naked. That's not something you do if you're just chilling reading a book by lantern light. Obviously, they were upset about something. There's something called infrasound, which I mentioned on our previous episode, which is sound that is below the threshold of human hearing. Researchers have determined that sounds at a very low frequency, we're talking about below 20 hertz, can, under certain circumstances, cause feelings of fear and panic and can have other physiological effects. So one theory is that something caused infrasound, which in turn caused the campers to panic and run and escape from their tent. It looks good on the surface, but there's a lot of questions left unanswered. If they were in a state of such heightened panic that they cut their way out of the tent instead of just going out of the entrance, then how would they have time later on to start a fire and climb up a tree? And the party split, so 2 people stayed at the fire, 4 people went further, and 3 people went back towards the tent. Is the infrasound source, it would have had to last for a really long time to cause people to be panicked for that long, to keep running for an entire mile. But why did people continue on while some of them, I don't know. There's a lot of unanswered questions with this particular theory, but it does check a couple of the boxes as far as the initial panic goes. The second theory that I want to bring up, I think is the most plausible theory that kind of ties together all of the loose ends, is that it was the Russian or the Soviet military was dropping parachute mines over the area. There are reports or records that in this general area, the Soviet military did test parachute mines. What a parachute mine is, it's basically a bomb on a parachute that detonates midair, and it doesn't kill by shrapnel or whatever. It uses the concussion of the blast to stun or otherwise injure troops on the ground. So you might drop this over enemy territory, and instead of bombing a small area, it could stun a very large group of troops. So that's why it might be effective as a weapon. Supposedly, they were testing over this area during this time. We don't have specific records that I could find. So by this time, I mean, generally around this year. But it could explain, first thing, it could explain the orbs that we talked about earlier that were reported by many different independent witnesses. And it also could explain the behavior of the people in the tent. If they had never experienced a concussion on this magnitude before, and let's be honest, who has? Not that many people, I'm guessing. If they dropped a mine that exploded in the vicinity of their tent, that would have been very panic-inducing to those people in the tent, and they would have been very fearful and would have tried to escape as quickly as possible. If it was dark in the tent and they couldn't find the entrance right away, somebody who had a pocket knife handy could have just cut their way out and could have said, okay, there's a hole. Let's get out this way. Let's run quick before we get shot by these bombs. And they headed towards the woods. Yeah, go ahead, ETA.
I was just going to say real quick about concussive force. If I haven't been next to a whole lot of big explosions, but the ones that I was next to, I knew that they were coming, and afterwards I still was, just for at least a split second, a little bit confused. Yeah, it's just if you've ever been next to like a big explosion or a big concussive force, man, it's something fucking else. I mean, all right, so anything that your average person would be able to kind of equate to this is some of your drag racing fans, okay? if you've ever been next to a drag race for a top fuel dragster or even like a funny car, holy moly. I mean, the type of concussive force that those engines put out, okay? I mean, because those are also, controlled explosions, you know what I mean, that you're dealing with inside that engine. So, I mean, some of those concussive forces from those dragsters alone, man, holy crap. I mean, for your average person, especially if you're not expecting anything like that, it might put you on your ass, I mean, it's something really to be rivaled as far as experiences go,
It is an interesting theory, though, because earlier I mentioned that the lead investigator had to, stop on the topic of the fire orbs. Perhaps the government had told him, because this was at the height of the Cold War, so maybe there was some type of military testing.
I was waiting for somebody else to say it, because during the Cold War, starting in, like let's say after World War II, like the mid 1940s up until the 1990s, it's always the height of the Cold War whenever you're talking about the Cold War. Please, but that aside, please continue, Agent Locke.
Well, yeah, basically that would make sense as to why they don't want him to investigate that further, because they may be doing some type of military testing that they don't need the general public to be knowing, because they're keeping that all under, as classified. So that is interesting. But I mean, then again, the whole radiation exposure is still bizarre. And then why would they, like, if they were testing, did they not know of these people being there? Or, I mean, to me, it would make sense to dispose of their bodies completely, but they just left them as is. Maybe they didn't know they were there to begin with, and then after these investigations took place, they realized, oh, okay, we need to kind of cut this part of the investigation out immediately.
Right, and that's the biggest objection to this theory, is that the military would have just completely covered it up if it had been them. Why would they let the investigation hit the public airwaves at all if they wanted to cover it up, right? They would have just completely covered it up.
Well, it could have been part of some sort of a social experiment, perhaps.
Or it could just be
reactions.
That the family's going to make a stink no matter what you're going to do, so you can't really cover that part of it up. So maybe they covered up the other parts of it.
Mm-hmm.
Who really knows?
Well, they let it look like it was a natural event, that took their lives, whereas the truth is much more sinister. But you can't have that type of, I mean, if they, assuming that is true and they had it, that, they can't disclose that. They can't let that reach the public, because it would create.
Of course not. And why would they?
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, dude.
But I like this theory because on the surface, it doesn't necessarily answer all the questions, but if they drop these mines over this area, it could explain the initial panic, and it could also explain they reach the forest edge or the woods, they build the fire, right? And let's say that the 4 people who went further on, they're still panicked. They have not yet mentally recovered, and they continue on. Everybody else is still there. 2 of them stay behind and say, we'll build a fire and stay here. You guys try to go back to the tent and go and get supplies and help us find our way back. And they died on the way back, but the plan was for them to go get supplies and come back and rescue everybody else. And the 2 people that stayed behind did so because the other people, the 4 people that went further, panicked, and they wanted to save those people as well. Yeah. And if there was these mines being dropped, it would have been a short event. So it wouldn't have kept going on for an hour. Let's say just one plane flew overhead and dropped a series of these bombs. That might have only lasted 5 or 10 minutes, which would have been plenty of time for them to get to the edge of the woods, start a fire, and separate and go their separate ways. Yeah. It could explain a lot of the events. It doesn't explain everything, but it explains more than most of the other theories, and that's why I like this one better than all the other ones. But it still doesn't explain everything, which is kind of fun because we have a real mystery on our hands here.
Dude, like I said, hey, they were all tripping their freaking balls off, and then they experienced some sort of like a paranormal event or some sort of a very significant event, whether it had been like, an aerial bomb or what have you. It freaked them the holy hell out, and then they reacted in very unreasonable ways, you know.
Yeah.
And that could also explain why they had, because all right, so the distance from the tents to that fire wasn't a short distance, but it wasn't also a great distance. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, the reason why it may have took them so damn long to get from, that point A to that point B would possibly be because they were under the influence just in general. You know what I mean? Whether it had been, some sort of psilocybin or LSD trip that they were on, whatever they had ingested, I mean, that could explain some of the unreasonable time frames. You know what I mean? Maybe they stopped along the way, had some sort of a spiritual event. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But literally, that the reason why they were having that spiritual event while they were tripping is because they were dying of hypothermia. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that can cause a lot of delirium suffering from those. Yeah.
Sure. I mean, who knows what the hell it's going to cause, if you are under the influence of these type of substances like I was talking about. But I'm just saying is all, I'm just interjecting here just real quick because I feel kind of strongly about this. You know what I mean?
I like it. I like a conviction.
Oh, you're damn right you do. I mean, I'm happy that you do.
I think Agent ETA might just be a degenerate drug addict, and that's why he likes this theory so much. But hey, that's just my theory.
Hey, man, there's different levels of consciousness that we have not experienced. I'm saying,
they were nature-loving people.
Yes, they were. And the beginning of every religion that I know of started out in a shamanic tradition. Every single shamanic tradition that I know of happened to have used, substances like DMT, however they derived, or I'm sorry, however they obtained that DMT, that they used it for their shamanic tradition to get in touch with their gods, right? I mean, a lot of the European ones use psilocybin and other different types of mushrooms, I mean, shit, even, I mean, one of the more legendary concoctions is ayahuasca down in Southern America, So, I mean, and that's primarily, I mean, that's a DMT brew right there, I mean, what I'm saying is that there's too many similarities there for me to, just glance over,
Yeah, and not having a proper shaman administer the ceremony of, ingesting these psychedelic substances could result in psychotic episodes.
Exactly. Exactly. Excited delirium, as we know nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
I think we've covered. Are there any other theories that we haven't touched on? I think we've.
Oh, there's a shitload that we have not touched on, but I don't think we have the time to. You know what I mean? I mean, there's a ton of theories.
I think we've gone over all of the major theories for this one.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's it then. Thanks for listening. What do you think about this week's topic? Do you have a strange experience of your own? Let us know on Twitter at AlienConPod or AlienConPod@protonmail.com. You can also send us your questions and comments, or let us know what topics you would like to hear in the future. And don't forget to tune in next time for the what flight 37? What is that, Agent Locke?
Malaysian flight.
Malaysia Airlines flight. Malaysian Airlines flight MH370.
Yes, for that topic. Don't forget to tune in next time for that topic.